Hey everyone, Kris Garlewicz here. I'm the founder and owner of Prosperify, and I've been talking about doing a show and putting something together to gather my thoughts and share them with an audience outside of the one-on-one phone calls that I'm lucky enough to have often. And so welcome to the intro opening episode of Rogue Wealth, which is a show that I'm going to talk about and cover all of the things that we run into on a daily basis in serving our family-owned businesses and their families, the challenges that we get through, the blocking and tackling, and the things that we unpack. Today, the main topic, the one that I find being the backbone of so many breakdowns in the folks that we talk to, is noise. And the topic being blocking out the noise, right? If you think about what noise means in our perspective and how I see people grapple with it, is it becomes the single biggest wealth killer that paralyzes people from making decisions. And it doesn't matter where you are in the spectrum of success and progress in your career and your business and building wealth and building families. But noise just becomes this massive distraction. Another thing that happens, and I'm guilty of it all the time, is all these tools and productivity items and ideas that show up and they're masquerading as a productivity tool. They're masquerading as a solution. And like I said, I'm guilty of it. I've got 4 or 5 different AI subscriptions today as we speak. And when we run through cash flow on a weekly basis, I see these expenses hitting. And they are not solutions to the problem if they're not well used. And so this continues to come and get in the way of progress. You know, I mentioned earlier about success. I've seen it in my own world. The megaphone of noise really builds up as you move down that path and you build a business and you grow, and there's other people, other interests, other incentives coming in the way that really blind you from what is the most important thing in whatever it is that you're working on. And look, it's a contact sport. I've said many times that life is a contact sport, investing is a contact sport, raising a family, all of these things. And noise is the one that seems to be the number one enemy of all of those domains. And it's how do you work around that? How do you figure out what's most important? How do you prioritize? What's the signal? I know I just threw a lot of information at you, and my intention is to get down to the signal in this episode. And so let me break it down into 4 things. Number 1, to signal the noise is a tax, okay? The growing amount of noise that we deal with drowns out the signal, and that's the tax we pay. The second thing, I tell folks, buy a filter, build a filter, steal a filter. What I mean by a filter is create a decision framework or use one to help filter out from the distractions, the noise, and focus on the signal. Focus on the things that drive you to your next objective and goal. For me personally, and I've seen this work time and time again, silence. Silence is a massive skill that you can acquire, because at the end of the day, our brain in any given moment has so much real estate, so much bandwidth that could be occupied. The question is do we let it get taken over by that noise and those distractions, or do we let it run free in the space of signal and moving forward to productivity and progress? And the last bit that I'll cover at the end, just to show you how serious these issues are for family-run businesses and their families, are some of the stats that just in my lifetime have prevailed to be really significant breakdowns that are battling with the amount of signal to noise that we have to deal with and shuffling through those 2 things. So we're going to unpack this one by one in those points, and really I hope that you can take away with a couple nuggets and implement in your world today to get better at making better decisions and going down that rogue wealth path. All right, let's go to number 1. Signal to noise tax. What do you mean? Well, we mentioned earlier that noise is the single biggest wealth killer that faces families and faces their financial investment decisions and decision-making tools. And over the last decade or so, I would say that deterioration or that tax, that noise tax, has gone parabolic. And it really comes back down to that magical device that we have in our pockets or on our desk within reach, right? Even if it's at dinner, how often I find myself checking myself. My kids check me. Hey, put the phone away. It's dinner time now, right? That noise is just, it's so easy. It's the walk to the car. It's the time in the bathroom. It's the standing in line for lunch. Wherever you go, you pop in your pocket, boom. Noise, 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 noise. And so how do we get around that? How do we take what we're dealing with, and how do we really focus on those specific items that drive our efforts and actions and our productivity forward, and find a way to just remove it all, right? Social media, market updates, everybody's competing for attention. Everybody wants that. The most important thing to remember is all of those items do not have your interests in mind. They don't care about me. They don't care about you. They don't care about what we're trying to build, the fortress of wealth, the optimal financial decision making. They have a different incentive. It's either eyeballs to click on use bait, it's a product that needs to get sold, or a new tool to be downloaded, another distraction, another complexity that's being involved into your mission and whatever it is that you're working towards. And even though you can see true information, accurate information, the question is it relevant to the next decision that's facing you for your family, for your business, for your financial future, whatever it may be? It has to be factual. It has to be relevant. Otherwise, I just say it's noise. Throw it away. Get rid of it. It's dangerous. It again goes back to the biggest wealth killer that we're dealing with, and it's only getting easier and more prevalent. Rogue wealth rule number 1, if it doesn't move the needle in your top 1, 2, or 3 priorities, it could be for the day, for the week, for the month, however you organize the things that are important to you, throw it away. Avoid it. Delete that app. Get rid of that website. Get rid of that email. Turn that ping off. There's so many different tools that you can use to remove them, but just opt out. Opt out of distractions. That's rogue wealth rule number 1. Let's take it to number 2. That personal filter or decision framework. Whether you build your own, which I suggest is the best. You know your situation, your aims, and your goals the best. But if you can borrow or steal from a professional or an expert around you, do that as well. Sometimes that's a shortcut. Take a framework that already exists and build on top of it. And what we do is what I call my cut corners first. And I'll tell you about that cut corners philosophy in a different episode. It was actually quite an eye-opening situation with my 5-year-old. But for me, the cut corners first tool within Rogue Wealth on rule number 1 is, look, is it a fuck yes? I want to do it. I'm excited. This is meaningful. This is going to move the needle. This is going to move the needle for whatever my priorities are. If it's not, walk away. No, not doing it. And maybe I'm not doing it right now. Maybe it is a fuck yes, because I get a lot of those. I suffer from ADHD, and I found a way to make it work to my advantage. There's a lot of rabbits I love to chase, a lot of shiny objects that I get distracted by. I put them on a list, put them in my fuck yes parking lot, and then one at a time, start working towards those. Try to filter out the noise as best as you can. There's other filters that you can use, like aligning your goals and incentives, using your team or leveraging your professionals around you to help delegate or defer, or have other experts that are better at doing something do it for you. And that's extremely important. And the alignment is, hey, here are the ideas, here's the filter, here's why it's important, and who does what by when. And that might be your number 2 priority on any given day, is just checking in on the who does what by when, having some sort of cadence schedule, everybody's accountable to it, and you can see the progress happening and the projects that are happening, and everyone's on track. You might ask yourself questions like, hey, does this align with my legacy goals? Does this align with my personal values or your principles? Does it align with helping the family get involved in the business, or helping the family? For us and my family, it's really important to do service hours and give back to the community. So when we think about accepting invitations and offers from the world around us, how I filter from signal and noise is I look for the signal of, can we involve the kids? Can we involve the family in giving back to that, move that forward? Other piece that I filter it on is really easy. Is this thing going to matter in 5 years? Does it give me any leverage? Does it give me any inside information legally? Does it give me any information to be able to go in and say, okay, I'm going to take this tool, this piece, this information that's relevant to my plan, I'm going to implement it, and here's what it's going to do over my forward-looking outlook and my target, that journey that we're going to go on. And how do we get leverage? And at the end of the day, without a filter, every random piece of information, every invitation, every item that we see, it's sitting there waiting for us to act on. And it might get a vote in your decision-making process. And that vote that you allowed in without a filter and without a process may end up being the thief that steals your vision. It may end up being the thief that steals your progress, that weakens your plan, weakens your preparation, and ultimately weakens what it is that we're all working for within our own individual worlds. All right, number 3, silence. It's a tough skill. It's a really tough skill. And it's not only silence in a conversation, right? There's that proverb or the saying, I don't remember if it was Charlie Munger or Warren Buffett, but it was, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. That's the first lesson. But the second lesson, the one that I think is extremely powerful for blocking out the noise and a core concept in Rogue Wealth is that we only have so much bandwidth at any given time. And we must protect that at all costs. We are capable. It's amazing the talents and skills and power and resilience and adaptability that we are capable of as humans. And when we have too much noise in the head, can I get stuck? We're supposed to be making decisions, moving things forward, looking to optimize those. Noise drowns it out. It takes up the real estate. It becomes like all the weeds in a nice, beautiful garden that haven't been picked and haven't been pulled, and they take over. You need to find a way to sit in silence, to sit in thoughts. And it's really easy. I mean, it could be as simple as my prep before the recording this was turning everything off 45 minutes before, turning everything off, not starting anything new. Threw myself on the couch over there and just looked out the window. Watched the planes, trains, birds, people walking, whatever it is, people watching, going by. But just being in stillness and silence, it lets you figure out and it lets your brain process and prioritize and alignment internally with what you really vision, what you feel, get those feelings and emotions out of the way, identify the signal, and act on it. No phones, no notifications, maybe even no people. Sometimes that quiet walk or the run or the training session, no earbuds, no devices. Be in the moment at what you're doing. Let your brain filter through what's important. All right, so on to number 4. We talked about stats and why this is important. First, if we're in business on having to make decisions, we need to know why we need to have a filter and a framework on making and improving those decisions and driving better outcomes. Over 70% of family-run businesses don't make it to the second generation. Even though it's the family operator's wish and intention to get it there, to get it to the second generation, maybe the third or the fourth, and the stats really deteriorate. Third generation survivals in the 10s and fourth generation and beyond is single digits. Question is why? Why is that? Why is that? Is that just the way things go? In my career, I used to think early on, yep, that's just how it goes. Second generation doesn't really care as much. Entitlement, lazy. You could throw around all the buzzwords. You can blame it on the millennials. I'm one of them. We're still sleeping in our parents' basement. I'm not, but you get it. You've heard it. Actually, what it comes down to is preparation. It's preparation, it's documentation, it's communication. And we find the most successful businesses that survive and the most successful family-run businesses that make it on multiple generations, only a third of them have a documented, well-prepared, and communicated process to be able to either use that business and have it survive through all the economic trends and cycles, or have it be prepared in such a way that maybe it becomes employee-owned, or maybe it becomes sold and there's a liquidity event to the family, but now there's this big pile of money that needs to be protected and preserved, this war chest that needs to be grown for the future generations so they can go off and maybe build their own careers or fund their own businesses and start their own things to continue that entrepreneurial legacy. It's documentation, it's preparation, it's communication. It's extremely important. Over 70% don't have it. They wish they have it. They wish of it. They know of it on here, but that means nothing. An idea is nothing until it's executed and implemented. And this is extremely important. From a rate of change standpoint, I was born in 1985, okay? I like to say that the public markets the public investing markets are a great litmus test of what's happening on the ground because we don't see what's happening on the ground. We don't see what's happening in the valuations or the operations or the margins or the debt of private businesses. There's no reporting mechanism there, but you get a glimpse into it through public companies. And what's fascinating to me is just over my 40 years of life, if you look at the top 10 companies in, let's say, the index, the S&P 500 in 1985 versus the top 10 today, they nearly don't exist. The ones that are in the top 10 today, 8 out of 10 of them today weren't around in 1985, right? You could see the cycle of how things are changing. And the question is how much of that information is signal? How much of that can you rely on? How much of it was noise, just knocking people out of, knocking businesses out of business, the economic cycles, coming in and wiping somebody out? How much of it was from distraction? I think at the end of the day, the core is that preparation, the documentation, that communication, and the silence that we need, whether it's individually or as teams and as families, to focus on the signal, to focus on what it is that we're looking to do and what it is that we're looking to achieve. And know that the rate of change of information and the flow is going to continue to accelerate. But what matters most is our aims, our goals, our vision, our culture, our principles, all those items, and working to maintain the value of signal without paying that noise tax. All right. So we covered those 4 things on signal noise tax, that personal filter, the skill of silence, and some of the stats. But what's most important is I watched this play out. 22 years now in business, in serving and advising family-run businesses. I see this stuff on the ground, front lines. And a particular story comes to mind, an experience that I was involved in firsthand, was this super successful, fast-growing family business with 2 families in equal shares. So 2 families in equal shares. And I'm not saying 51-49 or no, 50-50 even. Which, by the way, personal sidebar, 50-50 even split businesses are probably the worst thing you can do. When there's friction and when a decision comes up, and if somebody's signaling and another one's noisy, nothing gets done. And it gets really messy really fast. And I watched this unfold. Matter of fact, it's still running through the tail end of fights and attorneys and families and going back and forth on trying to split the business up, effectively hurting everybody, right? Hurting the future generation, second, and so on and so forth. What happened? The business was wildly successful in its launch, and a large corporate successful competitor started encroaching in the business. One partner who was getting comfortable in the success of the business and getting more into a lifestyle type of situation took that information as noise. And it became very obvious to the other partner and myself and as some of the other professionals on a team saying that this is no longer noise. This is a clear and present threat. It is signal. It is the number one thing. It's on the list of those priorities that we mentioned. It should have zoomed all the way up front and taken the number one spot, not only from a standpoint of continuing the business, but preserving the value of that business for both families and the employees and the staff. And there's so many people that were reliant on that business, as with most businesses. You think about how many mouths a business feeds. Man, I mean, it was just wild when we got that phone call. It was actually a little press release that went around to everybody involved saying, I refuse to identify and act on this piece that you guys call signal, that you call the roaring, blaring tornado siren that we're about to run into. I don't want to do anything. I want to just keep going. Worst case scenario, we can just walk and separate as friends. That wasn't the case. And it wasn't that easy because of the documentation that was created so many years prior that didn't really address these messy situations. Everybody thought everything's going to be hunky-dory. There wasn't enough communication. There wasn't enough preparation in that business amongst those families to address such a situation. Just let all of the noise drown out the most important signal. And the most important signal for them was the future of that business even existing. Now, I am happy to say that we were able to work well enough and assemble an A team to come and protect as many parts of that business for both families. They both suffer, yes. But in any negotiation, I don't think anybody walks away happy. Everybody walks away with feeling that they were dealt a decently fair hand. And so they walked away. The one partner who had the ambition and the silence to be able to see the signal is now rebuilding and recreating that, and that's going very successfully for that family. And the other one, frankly, got a decent enough paycheck to be able to reduce those shares and sell those shares off, and he's on to other things with his family, and they've all gone their separate ways. But if it wasn't for that clear and present danger, that signal, that business probably wouldn't be around today. And those families would have been knocked back years and years and years of sweat, progress, and toil. And that would have been the tax that they would have paid. So it's really important. This is really on the ground, in the pit stuff. And it leaves me with some takeaways for you. One, filter first and respond. Don't ever react. Reactions are an emotional response. It's like the stuff on the back of a medicine bottle or a label that says, hey, if you have these reactions, stop use and call your physician, call your doctor, dial 911. It's how do we respond, right? Response gives us the control. And the other thing is look, emotions, and you'll hear me say this throughout all the future episodes of Rogue Wealth, emotions are the worst advisors. They come from a state of feeling. They come from a state of disillusion, may be an extreme word, but I see it more often than not. You get too much noise in your head. You read too much stuff. You let too many outside factors influence you. They trigger emotions. And next thing you know, you're starting to make decisions from those emotional points. 9 times out of 10, probably even higher, I see it end as a disastrous outcome. It drives horrible results when you let emotions make decisions for you. Other key takeaway, silence opens doors. It opens doors to your best plays and your best opportunities. Sit in silence more and make that as a practice. And look, I've seen wealth built in quiet spaces, okay? And it's destroyed amongst the chaos. What I mean by wealth is grown in quiet places, success, overnight success over 20 or 30 or 40 years is the reality, right? You see success on socials, you see it in the media. You might be drawing your own conclusions right here, but it's everything behind the scenes. It's all the preparation, the communication, the blood, sweat, tears, and long hours. It's in the silence. That's where it's important. Look, we've covered a lot today, okay? And you might be willing to remain comfortable and complacent with the situation. I understand that. Sometimes we need a little more pain in our life to act. I've been there before. But if you're ready to unpack your situation, and you're ready to take action and address those key priorities, organize those priorities, build a team, and unlock that next level of what's holding back your family business, visit me at prosperify.com. That's prosperify.com. Schedule a power up, send us a connection invite, find us on socials. I really believe that we can help work together and unpack the things that hold you back to create a better decision-making framework and get you on a path to excellence. Get your family on a path to excellence. And frankly, get everybody back to enjoying what it is we're in business to begin with in the first place. That's what's most important. I'll see you on the next episode.